His thing about passing off the level to sound people. Actually, I wanted to get clarification on that because when we're doing stuff on a small scale, we actually try to plan everything out ahead of time. You know, like get all the feedback and everything before we actually start building assets. Is that true in regular industry as well? Like you wouldn't just say, "I'm going to build this level" and then pass it off to sound design and that'll be passed off to art. And everything is pretty much planned out before things start actually getting built, right? I mean, what is the actual workflow?
And I can't really speak for the AAA industry. I'm not really part of it. But well, I mean, if we're looking, so a lot of my experience with mobile design theory actually does come from like studying Valve and talking to those guys. What they'll do is they will come up with an idea for what they want in the level, and then they'll design it, you know, on some sort of sketch. But the sketch is only really a sketch until you get it into 3D, or you know whatever medium you're doing. Still do it in 2D. But if it's until it's interactive, it's just conjecture as to what the level will be like. So get it in there, prototype it, and then that's where you want to start talking to your sound guy. If a sound is part of your space, get it in there, even if it's a dirty form. If you don't have time to go out and get some like gunshots in the distance, like I don't know, bang on your desk a couple times and open up a sound recording program. So the workflow that I utilize, the one that I'm most familiar with, is one where prototype as soon as possible and don't keep things separate. Try to get some agreement on what is going to happen from the different parties involved. Anybody else? Yeah.
How do you figure in, I guess, tension and stuff, there's more elements like refuge spaces. I guess about pacing. And there's been I've seen many games where sometimes I feel like I've got to stop playing the game, so just distraught.
Yeah.
How do you, like, what are maybe some examples you've seen that really demonstrated some of these points really well, balanced it effectively, versus some that you've just been like?
Yeah, I gotta take a break. Well, because playing Dead Space, for example, I love Dead Space, but I'm tired after it. So the question was, how do you pace these things so that you don't get exhausted from the tension? And I did not touch on it because that would take me into a whole different lecture, but rewards can be employed with space as well as with like a health pack. So what you might want to do is, actually I have a decent example. So this screenshot from Half-Life 2 Episode 2, it comes after you're going through this underground antlion nest, which is really creepy and disgusting, and kind of tough to get through. It's a big action piece, and even though it sets up the sort of the danger of what's about to happen, there's an element of, okay, I get this cool vista to look at, which is a visual reward in and of itself. A vista is rewarding. But there's a sense of like, I can stop for a second. And that's what you need, those occasional stops and recharge points. Even if there isn't anything gameplay-wise as a reward, like a save point or a health pack, there's still a chance for the user to catch their breath. And hey, why not give them something cool to look at? So every time you go through a dangerous space, you want to give them some sort of breathing room. So for example, in the Innsmouth level, even though I tried to put together a creepy rest space, that house where you have to go downstairs is still kind of a, okay, I'm gonna, I don't have to worry about going on beats or running from bad guys. And then once you kind of go through it and realize, okay, there's nothing here, and I'm just in like 4 walls without any weird doors that are going to pop open all of a sudden. And that's, the last room is fairly big, so there still is a chance to catch your breath. Okay, I got the 5-minute thing, so maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Yeah.
So with level design, a game that comes up in my mind is always Dark Souls or Demon Souls. I was wondering what you thought about how the level, the gameplay of the level changes when you're actually in multiplayer mode versus non-multiplayer mode.
So the question was, how does the gameplay change when you're in multiplayer versus single player? Multiplayer is typically shorter. It involves some sort of mechanic, so be it capture the flag or a death match, or maybe something like Left 4 Dead, where you're the zombies or you're the humans and you're trying to kill one another. The multiplayer level design is, and all level design is, but multiplayer is more so dependent on just the mechanic that you're trying to build in. So if that mechanic can build an emotion, go for it and try to build it to that emotion. But 90% of the time, the multiplayer, at least in my experience, has been about, all right, so this is about capture the flag. We can do the prospect and refuge, and it can be exciting, but it's exciting more from a kind of action movie standpoint than, say, for example, a horror movie standpoint. Okay, one more.
What do you do when the players interact with the environment, like loot boxes and crates? Is that, like, as a game designer, would you say you need to atone for that or figure that into your refuge spaces and others?
So the question was, do you factor in movable boxes and interactive objects into your refuge spaces and prospect spaces? Yes. For example, a refuge could be a good place to teach a game mechanic. So nothing's going to come at you, but hey, you're going to be doing a lot of box pushing puzzles later, so why not take the time to teach that? Refuge spaces can be, if there's a lot of gun action outside of the refuge space, maybe the refuge space is your puzzle space too, where you get to take the time to solve a puzzle and work a different part of your brain in the game. Also, if you were to say do a box pushing puzzle in a prospect space, that can build a lot of tension. Balance that, because you don't want to, we were having a conversation before the talk started about being a sadist with your level design, making unfair, level situations. But there is an element of, like in Dead Space, and I keep using that as an example, but how the menus open in real time, and you're like, crap, gotta switch my gun. Gotta bring up the health pack. There's that element of, if you make somebody do something during those tense spaces, then again, that can be a really rewarding experience to get through. And then that's when you do the nice picture of the Grand Canyon, because it's a visual reward. So, well, that's about it. I'm going to stop here. If you guys want to chit-chat more, I'll be out in the hallway. But thank you guys for attending. Thank you for the great questions.